Very good. Benjamin Franklin, a famous
Hello.
writer, philosopher, once said, an
Hello.
investment is knowledge pays the best interest. Or, education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who
Hello.
prepare for it. Good morning.
Hello. You mute
Very
all
good.
the.
Benjamin Franklin, a famous
Hello.
writer, philosopher, once said, an investment is knowledge pays the best interest.
शुक्लां ब्रह्मविचारसारपरमा
A very good morning to the dignitaries. The guest of honor, Dr. Ishwaran Iyer, Dean, Commerce, Director Placements and Industry Interface, JGI, Dr. B.T. Venkatesh, Director and Advisor, JGI, the keynote speakers for the day, Dr. R. Shashikumar, Professor and Chairman, Department of Economics, Gnana Bharati, Bangalore University, Bengaluru, and Mr. Ankit Dugar, Associate Director, KPMG, Bengaluru, the head of the various departments, faculty members, and all the participants who are a part of this national conference on the topic COVID-19 implications for economy. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Jain College Vasavi campus to this webinar. To begin with, we have the lighting of the lamp and invocation. I request the dignitaries to light the lamp and Manjushri ma'am, Faculty Department of Management, to render the invocation song. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of Jain College Vasavi campus to this webinar. To begin with, we have the lighting of the lamp and
शुक्लां ब्रह्मविचारसारपरमाम्
render the invocation song.
आद्यां जगद्व्यापिनी वीणा पुस्तकधारिणी अभयदां जाड्यान्धकारापहाम् हस्ते स्फाटिकमालिकाम् विदधती बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम् वन्दे तां परमेश्वरी भगवती बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम् बुद्धिप्रदां शारदाम्
Thank you, dignitaries, and thank you, Manjushri ma'am, for the invocation song. I now request the conference director and principal and our guiding light and pillar of support, Dr. Naveen Kumar CM, to render the welcome speech. Thank you, dignitaries, and thank you, Manjushri ma'am, for the invocation song. I now request the conference director and principal
But that audio I'm not able to hear. Indeed. Good morning, everybody. Is it I'm audible?
Yeah.
So good morning, everybody. First of all, let me congratulate Department of Commerce, Management, Economics for conducting such a wonderful online conference on a burning topic called as COVID-19 implication for the economy. First of all, let me welcome and thank my professor, Dr. Shashikumar sir, who have accepted our invitation to be the first keynote speaker for this wonderful virtual gathering. Sir, thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation. And I should also thank our Honorable Director, B.T. Venkatesh sir, who was also part of this virtual gathering and who have been always been a supporting hand to us. So thank you so much, sir, for being a part of this virtual gathering. Thank you so much, sir, BTV sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And let me also thank all the participants and let me welcome all the participants, students, and also my faculty colleagues, HODs, who are also a part of this wonderful virtual gathering. And it is one of its kind which we have started in Jain College, especially in the Vasavi campus. And all the participants, I'm sure this day will be a wonderful day as far as knowledge gathering is concerned. In fact, I was just going through this particular topic called as COVID-19 and its implication to the economy. In fact, COVID-19 has literally pressed a panic button among all the stakeholders, be it primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. In fact, from past 90 days, there is literally the atmosphere is so panic, where government is basically bothering about health, sacrificing economic development, and all the other related economic activities. In fact, COVID-19 has created challenges, especially to middle class people, salaried people, backward laborers, migration of laborers, uncertainty, in terms of COVID-19's existence, when it's going to actually conclude. And it has created its own impact on gross domestic product, unemployment, Reserve Bank of India's policies, inflation, and it has made the policymakers to be more precise in understanding what is required at this point of time. On the other hand, if you just assess a COVID-19, which has created opportunities to few companies where, to quote one example is Zoom, a Zoom platform. In fact, if you just take from the day of inception of Zoom company, from past 90 days, the share price of Zoom has increased and the revenue of Zoom, it has literally increased because most of the stakeholders, especially educational institution and other golden collar and white collar people who are using this Zoom as a platform to interact with the people. And the revenue of Zoom has literally, it has increased from past 90 days, even though stock market crashed, but still Zoom really boomed during the lockdown. So in this context, I'm sure this particular conference will definitely give you more insight about the positive and negative impacts of this COVID-19. Even though we say it's negative, but the crisis, we say that, necessity is the mother of all invention. And the crisis is one time where people have come out with so many innovative ways of doing things. And even though we say that we are on the note of unlock one, but I'm sure all the sector as far as their functional operation is concerned, depends on the SOP model designed by the state government and the central government, taking health as a primary concern. So in this regard, in fact, today it's going to be a wonderful day. And let me just, congratulate the department for taking such a wonderful initiative. Let me pass on to Dr. Saravanan for further proceeding. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It was a very good note to begin with. Moving on, I request Ms. Shava Salim, Coordinator, Department of Commerce, to give a brief introduction about the conference. Over to you, Shawar ma'am.
COVID-19 is a disruptive pandemic which is breaking across industry barriers and changing the existing core business models which have been practiced for decades. It is also having tremendous implications for the global economy and Indian economy. The outbreak has implications for all business functions like management, marketing, finance, human resource, supply chain management, education, and the entire economy as a whole. Taking this into consideration, Jain College, Vasavi campus is pleased to announce its fourth national level conference on COVID-19 implications for economy, which provides a platform for research scholars, business leaders, teachers, and students to radically rethink, gain knowledge, and present their perspectives. Our objectives is to understand the implications of COVID-19 on business and economy, to comprehend possible upcoming changes in business environment, to acknowledge and analyze the opportunities to strive and thrive. Thank you so much. Over to Joyce.
Thank you, ma'am. We now have a small video clip about the college. Now, I kindly request the guest of honor for the day, Dr. B.T. Venkatesh, Director JGI, our mentor who's always been with us in all our endeavors, to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Sir, you can speak, sir.
Good morning to everyone. Dr. Shashi Kumar, sir, the chairman, Bangalore University. Dr. Naveen Kumar, CM, the principal of the college. All the conveners, conference secretaries, and the delegates. First of all, I must congratulate Naveen Kumar, sir, and the entire team for their efforts in organizing this webinar. I'm told 500 plus participants are there in the webinar and around 75 plus papers are being received. It's a very good attempt and excellent contributions by all the faculty members. I must congratulate on behalf of the chairman, on behalf of the management and my own behalf, all the faculty members led by the Naveen Kumar sir. So thank you very much. So well done. Continue this good work in spite of this lockdown. I think you have done a tremendous work. Coming to the topic, the COVID-19 implications of particularly Indian economy. I think the painful state of state we are undergoing in view of the COVID-19. It's not only in India, but the global scenario is such that a lot of things are disturbed. So even from common man to the highest level, the disturbance is caused. The four pillars of the economy, particularly the agriculture, manufacturing sector, services, and constructions, and the constructions have affected really very bad. Very bad. It is affected. So particularly if you take the agriculture sector, I think the growth has come down. Economic growth in terms of agriculture has come down from the last 6 months if you evaluate. And the produce which is produced by the farmers are not able to find their markets. And because of that, I think the prices, the supply is more and the demand is less, and there's no transportation and other things has happened. I think they are badly affected. And the second thing is manufacturing sector. I think more than 2 months, the lockdown has affected the manufacturing sector, and many people have lost their jobs. We are in the process of lockdowns and layoffs and pay cuts. So I think this is the order of the day. It's going on right now. And the third sector is service sectors. Some of the service sectors are really doing well, as Naveen sir has pointed out. The some booming is happening, particularly the pharmaceutical. And then e-learning, what sir was talking about, Zoom and other things. E-learning platforms are gaining a lot of importance. And we never heard of these masks and and sanitizers, but nowadays even the maid. So on the vegetable vendors, so they have the hand sanitizers, so in their pockets. That means they carry a lot of safety and is taken prayer importance in view of the COVID-19. That means the pharmaceutical industries, e-learnings, video, games, and other related. These things are gaining a lot of importance. So that means other areas, I think, very badly affected. And the service sectors, particularly FMCGs, fast moving. This one, that's all going well. But the capital intensive products are yet to take a lot of importance, because they're just manufactured, but there is no demand for these things, and we are locked up with the products. And we need to find out the linkages, and also try to work out on those lines. And the fourth sector is, as I said, manufacturing, services, and agriculture, and the construction and real estate has really it very badly. So the the economy has to gain a lot of this one, because of the construction workers, as we were talking about, they are moving to their native places. We find it very difficult to find them in the places. So therefore, he is yet to this one. I think this, this scenario is not only to India, but also to the global economy. The capitalist countries like US is facing a lot of problems. I think they say at least 3 years is required to recover, so to come to normal. But India has seen, up to 2011, the growth rate was very high, because after 91, the economy has opened up. So because of the liberalization and privatization and globalization, but 2011, we did really well. And every year, every 2 years once, we face a lot of problems in terms of a policy. So the demonetization is one such thing. GST is another, thing. Every, 2 years once or 3 years once, we face these problems, and the economy has slowed down. So I think the COVID-19 is a major hit to the Indian economy. I think it takes some more time to see our economic growth and our GDP. GDP has come to the, I think in the last 30 years, we have not seen this lowest GDP. So that is the, right now we are experiencing. I think, unless the government initiate a lot of initiations and, policy making and the benefits, so should be given to all the sectors, then only this will go into boom. Otherwise, it takes more time to recover our original growth rate. So with this, I extend a very warm welcome to all the delegates, and particularly to all our speakers, resource people, and sir has agreed, Shashi Kumar sir has agreed to give keynote address today. We are extremely happy. He is always with us as a department. He is always with us to support, and I am extremely happy to see him on this webinar. And my special appreciation to all the people who are involved in this webinar, Dr. Sharavana, Shruti, and then I think, the Shavar, then Ashwini, Pushpa, and the entire team. I might have missed out a few people, but so entire team has put in a lot of efforts, and they worked really hard. I'm really proud of this entire team, led by Dr. Naveen Kumar sir, a dynamic leader, so who is contributing to the college growth and development. So wish you all the best for the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your valuable words, sir. It was indeed informative and very helpful. Now we have with us Professor Pushpa N, Head of the Department of Commerce, to introduce the keynote speaker, Dr. R. Shashi Kumar. Over to you, Pushpa ma'am.
He has been conferred awards by institutions of Great Britain. Some of them include Outstanding Intellectual of 21st Century, Leading Educator of the World, and so on. A prestigious institute in United States recognizes him as a green economist. He is the only person invited to represent from developing countries to deliver special lectures on development. Respected dignitaries and scholars, it is a great privilege to introduce Dr. R. Shashi Kumar, Professor and Chairman, Department of Economics, Bangalore University, to all of you. His expertise has been sought by reputed organizations like KPSC, UGC, RBI, and many more. He is an expert advisor to United Nations Foundations, Washington, D.C. It is very, very nice to know that he is the only person to be invited from India to represent World Trade Organization. Besides this, he has contributed immensely to several research papers in academic journals, conferences, workshops, and seminars. It is wonderful to acknowledge that he served as consultant to World Bank in finalizing World Development Report of 2008 and 2010. He has worked for IMF in evaluation of its works and is a task force member of FAO to reorient agricultural research to meet Millennium Development Goals. It is an honor for JGI to have him here for this intellectual feast.
Thank you, ma'am. I request Shashi Kumar sir to take over.
Good morning to all. Naveen, can you hear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, good morning to all once again. So I'm very thankful to the organizers of this event for being organizing a great event, particularly the academic event, to enrich the academic sections of the society. So I am very much happy to be a part of this event. Once again, I'm repeating this fact. And I congratulate the entire team of the Jain College for organizing this event in a massive event. So I'm again congratulate for being organizing this. I'm very happy because nowadays all the webinars and even everything taken place, but seriousness is decreasing as webinars are increasing. The understanding of the seriousness is decreasing, as I found. But Jain College in this regard has taken a very good step regarding this. Particularly, they involved the students and others for this. And the special compliments to Dr. Naveen. Uh,
Thank you so much.
yes, yes, principal of this college for organizing this event. And I am thankful to the Jain College for invited me to this event as a panelist. I'm very happy. Special thanks to both director, my beloved director. I used to say that Dr. B.T. Venkatesh sir. I'm very happy to see you sir here. I'm very happy. And Naveen for being associated this. And Dr. Naveen and Dr. Venkatesh sir have meticulously narrated many issues of the Indian economy. There is no need for further extent of understanding of all the introductory part of this because it's take much of time to be taken. So Indian economy is in a versatile economic system where the diversity made unity possible. That is the integrity. But I used to say that is it is a financial integrity more than any other things now, because money makes everybody make easierly unite. So many countries are uniting only because of the money. You take the example of the euro dollar. So nearly for about 30 to 37 countries are uniting through the context of currency or money. On this ground, even in India, money play a dominant role. Money is one of the important major instruments of economics. Economics is dominated by the instruments of money. Hence, I'm going to tell you something about what is the impact of the COVID-19 on the Indian economy and what is the response of India. So you will have to consider this is not only a result, it is not a result, but it is think that what is happening at present like that. We are going to talk something about related to the issues of the Indian economy. So I'm going to share some screen related to this. I just will directly start the session. I think it can be seen now.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, sir, it can be.
Yes. Yes. This is the topic of our discussion, today's discussion. Be very curious and very cautious and be very patient in learning of many issues of the Indian economy. So what I want to mention related this is I have been mentioned already that it is not a result. It is the play where we are going to do something, what we have to do and how we have to do is very much important to be noted. Hence, on these grounds, I have selected this topic because two important things are there in this. One is I called it as a crisis, the COVID-19 crisis. And what is the India's economic response related to this issue? So on this ground, I am going to proceed with the context of five important different things. One being, we will have to talk something about the introduction, where we heading towards the India and the COVID-19. Second part will be the India's response. Third will be the government initiative. What are the government steps it has taken? And then the impact on the economy on different sectors, on different features. And last part will be the conclusion. So the sources of the main information related to this topic is I collected from the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Reserve Bank of India, Ministry of Commerce, India, Economic Survey, Government of India of different years. So introduction. So introduction, we will have to say something about as to how that we can deal with the economy. Since we concentrated much on the economy of Indian economy, so it is better to know something about what is economics used to say. Because economics is having two important dimensions. One is related to the maximum satisfaction related issue. Second one is the resource issue. So where we can identify that is maximum satisfaction versus the limited resources. So unlimited wants and unlimited desires, one side, and the natural resources, human resources, capital resources, they are very much limited on the other side. So natural resources in the case that we'll have to adopt that in the case of the efficiency, human resources in the case of laborers particularly, and the capital resources in the form of the finance particularly. It may be the including the technology and other things, but in a general sense, we are going to talk in this way. So totally economics is going to study how to maximize the satisfaction with the limited resources. This would be the case. And then if you consider that of the economy is nothing but where the economic activities took place or takes place. So Indian economy is considered in the two important things as a general thing. One being the activities, economic activities. Second one being the economic sectors. The economic activities are in the form of the production, distribution, consumption, investment, saving, pricing, etc. Even related to all other major issues. And the sectors are divided into four important major things: agricultural sector, industrial sector, service sector, trade sector. Agricultural sector used to call it as a primary sector. Industrial sector used to be called as the secondary sector. Service sector is the tertiary sector. Trade sector is the external sector. So these are the things which are there before we are learning something about the Indian economy. And then the Indian economic policies are there. Economic policies are in the two ways, because we will be having the economic activities as well as the sectors. That's what we have two important ways of understanding this thing. One is the fiscal policy, and second one is the monetary policy. Two important policies, economic policies are there in the Indian economy. The fiscal policy is maintained by the government or backed by the government. It used to say something about the spending of the money, taxation policy, investment policy, disinvestment policy, debt management are the important objectives of the fiscal policy or important functions of the fiscal policy. The monetary policy is going to have the direct deal with the banking sector, that is related to the Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India is denoted with that of the monetary policy. The main functions of that are concerned with the bank rate or the determination of the rate of interest, the repo, cash reserve ratio, open market operations. So repo here used to be say something about the repurchase agreement. So on these grounds, the Indian economic policies has been divided into two parts, considering the fiscal policy and the monetary policy. Fiscal policy is very much related to the government economic policy. Monetary policy is very much related to the Reserve Bank of India's policy functions. So functions are very much different. Why these functions? Two types of the functions are there. This is the basic question. Any government or any country can have only one type of the function, but it is the major division that we can identify that the major features are different. Under the fiscal policy, the government direct expenditure is taken place. For example, the subsidy, salary, payments, etc. And in the monetary policies, it's very much related to the determination of money supply, either to increase or to decrease. So money from the banks to the borrowers. This is the major important fact. As I have been already mentioned that the major fact behind the existence of the economy is through functioning of the money or currency. So Reserve Bank of India is playing a very dominant role in determination of the money supply. So transferring of money from banks to the borrowers, just to boost something about the liquidity proportions. For example, it is in the form of the rate of interest, credit policy, minimum reserve ratio, etc. These are the different functions through which the Indian economy is having its function related to the fiscal as well as monetary policy. So now we can think about, so I had given a brief introduction related to the Indian economy, how the economy functions, what are the different formats are there, and how the economic system is going to be taken place. There are two important ways through which we'll have to identify the economic policy. So COVID-19 has been removed, is wants to remove or deliberate to remove or intend to remove on the grounds of two important policies, either from the fiscal policy or from the monetary policy or the combination of both the policies. So the India and the COVID-19, now we can understand that the virus and the disease were first detected in Wuhan, China in December 31st, 2019. In the beginning of the March 2020, an outbreak in over 60 countries across the globe. This is the case where we can identify the major context of the COVID-19. On March 11, WHO has declared COVID-19 a pandemic. So these are the major issues related to the virus and the disease related to the COVID-19. Now we can heading towards the understanding of India's response. So India is now the fifth worst hit coronavirus country globally after the US, Brazil, Russia, and UK. US, Brazil, Russia, and UK. India has adopted 4 Ts to overcome from this pandemic. One is testing. Second one is tracking. Third, tracing, and tracking and treatment. So these are the 4 ways in which the pandemic has been removed. The Indian way of removing of all this: testing, tracing, tracking, treatment. And then, if you're heading towards understanding of the next important part related to the issues of the Indian response, in fighting the pandemic, the central government adopted the path followed by China, Italy, Spain, France, and Britain. And the lockdown has adopted. A lockdown is an emergency. This is the meaning of the lockdown. A lockdown is an emergency protocol that prevents people from leaving a given area. This is lockdown, the meaning of the lockdown. A lockdown is an emergency protocol that prevents people from leaving a given area. This is one meaning. The second important feature of that is a full lockdown. So lockdown is different, full lockdown is different. A full lockdown will mean you must stay where you are and not exit or enter a building or the given area. So these are the two ways of understanding of the lockdown. Lockdown and full lockdown. And then how the other things, other institutions have supported India through overcome from this pandemic. The World Bank support, it is a global support. World Bank has support globally for the developing countries in this way. The World Bank group is rolling out $14 billion fast track package to strengthen the COVID-19 response in developing countries and shorten the time to recovery through 3 important ways. One is the financing, policy advice, and technical assistance. These are the 3 ways in which the support has been given to the developing countries, particularly from the World Bank. And now we can understand how World Bank has supported the Indian economy, particularly of this. On April 2nd, 2020, the World Bank's Board of Executive Directors approved a fast track of $1 billion US dollars India COVID-19 Emergency Response and Health Systems Preparedness Project. This is the name under which the amount has been released to Indian economy. That is India COVID-19 Emergency Response and Health Systems Preparedness Project to help India prevent, detect, and respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and strengthen its public health preparedness. This is the way in which the World Bank has supported the Indian economy. This is the largest ever health sector support from the World Bank to India. This is very much highlighted. Health sector play a dominant role in all the economies. So India has got, this is the highest name. So I had mentioned something about it is related to conversion of the rupees in the end. So now we can take the part of what are the government initiative that took place related to the overcome from the pandemic of the COVID-19. First important fact, the Reserve Bank of India, which has been operating from a war room, as I've been mentioned something about the fiscal policy or monetary policies like that. So the Reserve Bank of India, which has been operating from a war room at a secret facility here since March 19, war room, they have created a war room there with statutory stock of 150 members working 24/7 in isolation to keep the essential Reserve Bank of India services under Business Contingency Plan, BCP. Business Contingency Plan. This is one of the important plan of the Reserve Bank of India, under which the war room has been created on March 19, and nearly for about 150 members are working 24/7 on different aspects of the Indian economy. And the three major issues they are been talking, and they are been making the reforms every day at all the time. That is one related to the debt management, second one is reserve management, third one is monetary operations. So these are the three functions through which the Reserve Bank of India functioning now, even now. And nearly for about 1,500 members on a normal day doing their work only for this COVID-19, nearly for about 1,500 members, apart from this war room. And one of the important major thing is nearly for about 6,500 employees are there in Reserve Bank of India all over the country. Among them, 1,500 members are daily working on it, and 150 members are doing their work in the war room. And the second important fact related to this is Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India provided additional liquidity of rupees 5 to 6 lakhs crore during this period. Particularly, my discussion is very much related to between the March and June and present day world of 2020. So long-term bound buying operations, long-term repo operations or LTRO, to infuse liquidity into the banking system worth rupees 1 lakh crore at a time. So these are the two important major operations which was took by the Reserve Bank of India related to the COVID-19. And the second important part, so first is related to the Reserve Bank of India function, the major important facts related to the functions of the Government of India or Reserve Bank of India. Now we are going to talk something about the other facts. The second important second important measure the Government of India took place was the Arogya Setu application. And third important factor is rupees 1.7 lakh crore released on March 26, 2020 to boost the demand from the Indian economic people. And the fourth is related to the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, that is MG Narega. So this is very much related to as to how that can creation of the employment. Nearly for about 417 million persons day of work, a stake increase in 31% rise from the year to earlier. So my MG Narega schemes investment has been increased nearly for about 31%. These are the highest ever a month since the launch of the scheme 15 years ago. This is very important to be noted. And the fifth important step the Government of India was took was PM Kisan scheme and PM Cares for agricultural development. The investment was also increased in that. And the sixth important step the Government of India took was Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, which was implemented on May 13, 2020. It's nothing but it's a self-reliant Indian mission. So which was there in the second and third plan period of the Indian economy like that. And what are the major functions behind that? Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan Yojana, Abhiyan. So first important fact related to that is the liquidity infusion. And that is the feeding it is nothing but the creation of the liquidity in the hands of the people. So direct cash transfer for the poor. This is first important objective. The second important function is related to long-term reforms in growth and export-oriented industries. So long-term reforms in growth of export-oriented industries. And that we have rupees 20 lakhs crores economic package. 20 lakhs crore economic package to the Indian economy. But one of the important basic things that we can identify the differences between the US and the India is very much clear here. And I had mentioned that US package was rupees 225 lakh crore. It has released for the same purposes in US, not in India, in that country. And the second important feature of the 20 lakh crore of economic package is related to the 10% of India's GDP in 2019 and 20. The total of 10,000 of GDP has invested or converted or transformed from the GDP notions of 2019 to 20 related to this Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So other important factor related to this is the promoting of local products. These are the many important things. And let me see how this amount or the money has been transferred in a different way. So the government of India has took 5 important different tranche, that is parts or divisions, to look into the case of the Indian economic problems. And the division of that 20 lakhs crores in the following way. The first one is first tranche, second tranche, third tranche, and fourth and fifth tranche, and fifth is earlier measures, including PM Kaurji and RBI measures. Never consider that it has only once it has been released 20 lakhs crores to this, but it has released in a different way. Before 20 lakhs and other things, it has been released 5 and 6 parts. You can identify the 5 and 6 parts. These parts were released before the existence of this Atmanirbhar Abhiyan during May 13th, 2020. So 1, 2, 3, 4 points are on May 13th, 2020, and 5 and 6 are before only they have distributed, released from the government of India. The first tranche is related to 5,94,550. So it's related to the small business and support to shadow banks and electricity distribution companies. This is adopted. And second tranche, free food grain to stranded migrants workers who for the 2 months and credit for the farmers. And the third chapter is related to agriculture infrastructure and other measures for agriculture and allied sectors. And fourth is related to the structural reforms. Structural reforms in the sense of what we have mentioned something about in the 1991 new economic policy, structural adjustment programs on these grounds related to the currency and other matters. And last part is related to the earlier measures, including the PMJRG, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan package, 1,91,800 crores. And last one will be the RBI measures, that is 8 lakhs, 1 crore, 1 lakh 603 crores. So totally 20 lakhs 97,053 crores. This is very much related to the 20 lakhs crores divisions made by the government of India towards the removal of the pandemic of COVID-19. And then the seventh important measure the government of India took place was the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Ordinance of 2020. It's very much related to the agricultural sector. And the eighth function or eighth policy is the inclusion of fishermen and animal husbandry farmers under Kisan credit cards. And ninth part will be the short message services or the SMS facility for taxpayers filing nil monthly GST return benefit about 22 lakhs registered taxpayers. And the 10th important fact as to how the Indian economy took part related to the COVID-19 is nearly for about 8 crore migrants workers who are not covered under the National Food Security Act, NFSA, or any other state-run PDS schemes are slated to receive the free food grains. This is the 10th important measure the government of India took. And the 11th is Jan Dhan Yojana. The government has in its economic stimulus package provided for 5 kg of food grain and rupees 500 per month for 3 months for poor women. And the 12th, new scheme up to 500 crores, which have been already appraised by the departments and ministries, would also be suspended in the current financial year. These are the simple ways through which the Indian government took place, particularly between March and June. That's what I'm mentioning. I'm stressing over this. These are the major reforms, policies, or programs of the government of India between March and June. And then the next important part is under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, the government has announced funding the entire EPF, Employees Provident Fund contribution, made by employees for companies which having less than 100 workers. This is also one of the important major step took by the government of India. And Indian products in paramilitary canteens from June 1st. And the next important part related to that is the Make in India and going local, not going global. going local is very important. So on these grounds, we are going to talk something about Make in India previously going global, but now Make in India related to the global going local. So these are the major steps the government of India took place related to the issues of removing or alleviating the COVID-19 pandemics. And then what are the major impact on the Indian economy? Let me analyze the different sects through which the impact of the Indian economy or the implications on the Indian economy. The first one is, let me analyze how the global GDP rates took place in the different ways. It's not only the India. We are going to compare the GDP growth rates, that is the gross domestic product rates from one country to the other country, how they are going to be affected during this period of May, June, March, as well as the June. And let me take, which is the major country. The France is the first important major country, which is much going to be affected. Second is Italy. Third one is Spain, and Russia, Mexico, Brazil, USA, Germany, and the global is -6%. All are minus, negatively affected. Japan, India, China. So though the virus has come from China, China is less affected. So you can imagine the case, how much different countries are affected in a different way, starting from France to the end of this China. So this is very clearly says that from the point of, you can identify here the Germany. From Germany and Japan, India, China, they are in the form, at least they can maintain the issues of the COVID-19 compared to the any other countries. The much affected country is France and Italy. Then we can easily understand as to how that we can deal with these issues, particularly GDP, gross domestic product. And then let me consider the sake of the Indian economy, how Indian economy is differently affected by the COVID-19 in a different parameters. We have divided that impact or the implications in the three important ways. One is high impact sector, second one is medium impact sector, third one is low impact sector. These are the different types of the sectors through which the effect of the COVID-19 used to be taken place. We are going to be measured in a different way. And let me take the example of the high impact sectors: aviation, hotels, restaurants, jewelry, retail, shipping ports, and port services. They are the highly impact sectors. Majority of these are very much related to the international relations, international trade, or international business. The medium sectors, impact sectors, are going to be related to automobile sectors, building materials, residential, real estate. These are the medium impact sectors. And low impact sectors, it has been calculated by the Indian economy, the government of India. That's what I used to mention about all these things. The low impact sectors are related to education, dairy products, fertilizers, FMCG, and healthcare, among others. So these are the ways through which we can identify which sector is going to be affected more compared to the others. And this is the gross domestic product, India's gross domestic product. Gross domestic product is nothing but it is the total monetary or market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country during a particular year or during a particular period. That's what we used to see. It is the total value of the goods and services which has been produced during a particular year in a country related to all the sectors of the economy, including agricultural sector, industrial sector, service sector. That's what I mentioned something about the sectors of the economy. So this is nothing but the gross domestic product, GDP. So we can identify here the variations of the gross domestic product, which has been resulted by the COVID-19. So Q1 FI, it's nothing but Q1 financial year 20, Q2 financial year 20. So like that, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So this is the ways in which we can identify the different ways. It is only the comparison of this from one period to the other period. November 2019, February 2020, May 2020. So in the first quarter, how the percentages have been decreased. So 5%, 4.5, 5.6, 5.1, 4.7, like that. So ultimately in the May 2020, the fourth quarter, it is going to be expected. It's going to be expected. After that, that's 3.1% of gross domestic product. And next, the impact of the GDP. The impact of the GDP related to this. So first quarter one, quarter two, quarter three. So here I mentioned something about it is a comparative study. It is the comparative study from 2019, February 2020, and May 2020. But here we used to say what is the total of the impact of the GDP. First quarter, January to March 2020, the growth rate was 5.6%. And in the second quarter, April to June 2020, the growth rate, GDP growth rate was 5.1%. And the expected July to September 2020 is 4.7%. This is the total growth rate of the Indian economy related to the gross domestic product. So you can identify that it is the economy is forecasted related to the June, July to grow 4.5% in current fiscal year. So the slowest in 11 years. This is the very much slowest in 11 years. But because almost all the Indian economy is having its own GDP growth rate related to 7 or 8%, or even further related to the updation of the up to 9%. But here it is the 11 years lowest 4.5%. So among the large economies, only India and China are expected to grow. So this is very interesting fact. Among the largest economists, large economics, only India and China are expected to grow at 1.9% and 1.2% respectively in 2021, in 2020-21 period related to the GDP. And next we come to the understanding of the unemployment. So during the April 2020, the unemployment rate was increased 24.2%. And in May 2020, the unemployment rate was increased 26.8%. This is an increasing of unemployment rate. So usually unemployment in India is between 7 and 8% in previous years, but it has been gradually increased. If you compare even January to March or April, it has been drastically increased. So 14 crore people lost employment between March and May 2020. Rural unemployment is 26.7%. Urban employment is related to 25.1%. Here, rural unemployment is very high compared to that of the urban unemployment. And next, we shall talk something about the migrant workers. More than 58 crores migrants have traveled to their native towns. More than 58 lakh migrants have traveled to their native towns and village since May 1 using the Shramik special trains. This is the estimated made by the government of India. More than 58 lakhs migrants. And only 20.26 lakh migrants workers of the targeted 8 crores such laborers have received the free food grains in May and till date. This is one of the important major drawback of the Indian economy related to the migrant workers. And now we shall come to the inflation rate. The inflation, where the rise of the price used to be taken place. This is very much related to the consumer price index, not the wholesale price index. So where the consumers are willing to purchase the goods and services, the consumer's price index. We can assume the fact that here during the January and between the January and June, we can identify the inflation rate, that is rise in the price of the commodities. So in January 1.8%, February 1.7%, in March 1.5%, and April 1.4%, and May 1.6%, and immediately it is gradually and steadily increased to 5.5% in June 2020 at present condition. So here you can identify the inflation between the March and the May. What are the different ways in which the inflation took place? The consumer inflation 5.84% from March to May. I've been mentioning something. And then within that, we have the food inflation. We can understand the food inflation. Food rates, food prices, 8.76%. And within that, we have 4 important different categories under the food: vegetables, milk, cereals, pulses. They are all the examples I am going to give you. Vegetables price rise in 23.72%. Milk 3.55%. Cereals 6 years high. It's a 6 years high, 7.84% cereals. And pulses 22.81%. These are the ways in which we can identify the rise in prices in the Indian economy related to the food inflation as well as the consumer inflation. So in the mainly of fruits, vegetables, sugars, and confectionery. So you can identify that the major affected goods goods are related to the fruits, vegetables, sugars, and confectionery. And now we can identify the facts related to the Indian agriculture. So in the Indian agriculture also, we are playing a dominant role related to both the domestic as well as the external affairs. Then we can say something about the Indian economy related to the agricultural prospects. Agriculture provide 58% of the employment to the people of India. And after, under this COVID-19, the major affected areas are related to the floriculture, vegetables, fruits, fisheries. Fisheries, particularly export categories fisheries, not only the domestic. So fisheries are also going to be exported from India to the other countries. That's also been affected. Floriculture has also been affected. Vegetables are also affected. Fruits are also affected. Because these are the three important places: floriculture, vegetable, fruits. Particularly vegetables and fruits are going to be affected more. They have affected more because all the maximum exports during March, May every year. You can simply state the fact that vegetables and fruits are going to be exported more in the months of March and May because of this harvest. So the totally it's a fall production of 80%. So this is related to the Indian agriculture. Now we shall come and see something about what has been happened in the Indian industry. So Indian industrial production contrasted for about during the March 16.7%. So it has been contrasted. So it has been decreased. And during the May 23.8%. So industrial production has been decreased. So what are the major reasons behind this? The first one important major reason is the lack of demand for the industrial goods, both from the Indian economy as well as from the outside the economy. Second is the labor shortage, because the laborers did not give any much more importance on those grounds. And high fixed cost. Fixed cost, we have three important types of the costs in economics: fixed cost, variable cost, as well as the total cost. So high fixed cost. Fixed cost here nothing but whether the production is maximum or zero or minimum. The producers or the investors have to pay the prices for the use of that. But the best examples are the electricity. So major hindrances related to electricity. We recently assumed that many industries used to get 5 lakhs or 8 lakhs or maximum extent of the electricity fees, electricity bills, like that. They are the fixed. They are all coming under the fixed cost. Even some ways, somewhere it is the wages. Wages are also coming under the fixed cost. So social distancing, transportation. So these are the major important facts. They have affected the Indian industry. Lack of demand, laborer shortage, not labor shortage. Laborer, we will have to use always for the laborer, not the labor. Labor is different, laborer is different. Labor is nothing but the work done by the laborer. Laborer is nothing but a person who is doing the work. So these are the differences. So high fixed cost, social distancing, transportation, these are the major important causes. SMMEs. So these are also very important things that have been affected by the Indian economy through the COVID-19 impact. That is micro, small, and medium enterprises. We call simply in short form, we call MSMEs. So first important factor the government of India took place was related to the reformulation of this is the definition of the SMEs have been changed. And the second important fact is the emergency credit line facility has given to the MSMEs. Under that, what are the major factors that we can identify? The government stands guarantee for all the loans, which has been taken by the MSMEs. And the benefits of 45 lakhs MSMEs and continue to till October 31st, 2020. These provisions are till rupees 3 lakhs crore is dispersed. And no guarantee fee to fresh collateral is required for the emergency credit line. So these are the major prerogatives that have been emerged from the COVID-19 to the MSMEs. And the major sectors output fall. What are the major sectors output fall during this March and June 2020? Coal sector 15.5% drop, cement sector 86.1% drop, steel sector 83.6. They are all related to the construction sector. As our professor Dr. Venkatesh used to say something about the impact on the construction sector. Cement sector, steel sector, fertilizer sector 4.5%, crude oil sector 6.4%, and natural gas sector 19.9 sector. These are the falling of the outputs related to the COVID-19. So now we can understand the service sector's probabilities as to how that we can deal with during the March and June of 2020. So India's service sector activity plunged to lowest on record, starting from 59% to 58%, 45%, 48%, 55% to 5%. Their contribution in the economic activity, service sector activity in economic development, or service sector activity in the economy. So service sector is to be concentrated on the health sector, except to that of the health sector, that is the transportation sector, the electricity sector, infrastructure sector, each and every sector, particularly the education sector is also be there, insurance sector. They are all the sectors that are very much related to the service sector activities. They fall down to 5%. And then these are the indexes related to the different categories of the learning of the Indian economic things. One is the consumer sentiments index. So dropped in March and May. We are going to compare between March and May of 2020. Consumer sentiment index, lowest since 2019. That is a drop in 40.4%, and it has been slightly increased by 0.5%. So in May, in March, it was when completely dropped. Consumer expectation increase, expectation index now 41.4% to 0%. There is no movement in that. There is no increase or decrease in March, in May. And the third part will be the current economic conditions index, 38.9% in March, plus 1.2% in May. That is a increase in that current economic conditions index. Current economic situation. So lowest since March 2019, 83.7%, the dropping of 83.7%, the current economic situation. And it has been slightly increased 2.5% in May. That is related to the consumer confidence. And then the capacity utilization of companies, particularly the BPO and other things, the lowest since 2009, 69.1%, that is capacity utilization of companies. And then it has been slightly increased to 1.8% in May. And then we can identify here the consumer confidence survey, Reserve Bank of India, which has been made between the December 2018 to May 2020. You can identify here the consumer confidence survey. So in December 2018, it was 96. And January 2019, 99, it has been increased. And April 2020, 2019, it has been increased. We can come and see the January 2020, it was been slightly decreased to 83%. And from there onwards, it has decreased to 84, 78, particularly in April, it has drastically decreased, and slightly it has been increased to 86.2% in May. So this is related to the consumer confidence survey made by the Reserve Bank of India. And then how the pandemic has affected the corporate sector of the Indian economy. The corporate India vulnerability index, we call it as a vulnerability index, corporate sector. We have nearly for about 15 to 20 different types of the index portfolio related to this. There are different index, like how we can identify in the human development index related to the education, health, transportation, infrastructure facilities, and training and other things like that. We have in the corporate sector, there are nearly for about 15 to 20 will be there. So I identify the major 4 only important facts. One is related to the interest coverage ratio, net profit to GDP, revenue growth, earnings growth. So there we can identify that the variables of financial year 08, financial year 19, and first half of financial year of 2020. So this is very much related to January to June. So here you can identify that the growth rate as to how that we can deal with. So earnings growth, particularly in the last part, is in 2020, it has been decreased to the minus 2.3. And the interest coverage area, if you compare to that of the financial year 2008 to 2020, it is a drastic decrease. You can identify in all the sectors. You compare between financial year 2008 to 2020, you can identify how drastically the India vulnerability index has been decreased. So interest coverage ratio, net profit GDP, revenue growth, and earning growth. So financial problems. Let me come to the point of what are the major financial problems the Indian economy has been facing at present. The banks have been unwilling to extend credit. This is one of the important major problem at present. In June 2020, the existing categories related to the major issues. Banks are not willing to extend the credit, though government and Reserve Bank of India is willing to pay more, but the commercial banks and the regional rural banks are not giving much more loans for that because of the case related to the generosity of the back payers. And the second important part is transmission of money. Funds from banks to people is a major problem. And third one is related to the lowered aggregate demand for the goods and services. When there is a fall in demand, there is no demand for other things, particularly of the financial issues. Next, disinvestment cannot be possible because many of the industries are related to the bankruptcies and other things. Then the disinvestment cannot be taken place. So this is also one of the major financial problem of the Indian economy. And the problems of electronic issues in rural areas, particularly the internet or mobiles or TVs or any other things, they are also going to get the major problems. And this is now come to the important point of our discussion, that is the global trade or the trade or international trade of India. So this is the global trade as to how that we can deal with the related the facts of how the trade can be possible. So in the global trade, we have three divisions: world trade and exports and imports. Especially this slide is going to give you a clear picture related to the impact of COVID-19 on different economies, particularly on the international trade during March 2020 to June 2020. This is the major effect we can identify here. The world trade, exports and imports. The world trade, exports and imports. So they are in minus. The disequilibrium in the international trade, the disequilibrium in the trade facts. So world trade minus 12.9% decreased, exports minus 14.2%, imports again decreased to minus 12.2%. This is the clear picture of the world trade or the global trade. And then you can come to the point of understanding the next important point, that is India's share. Let me come to the talking related to the India's international trade activity. So it is very much related to two important different things: value of mercantile exports and value of mercantile imports. So you can understand these facts. We are going to talk something about this related to the 2019. Let me talk something about the same issues after the pandemic has happened in the Indian economy. This is previous years. So ranking value of mercantile exports in 2019 ranks first rank China. So exports, maximum exports in the world, China. Second rank is US. Third rank is Germany. Fourth rank is Netherlands. So this is the ways through which we have the clear picture related to the international trade. And we can come to the value of mercantile imports in 2019. So again, we shall go to the ranks. First rank US, imports. Second rank China. So in the China is the first rank export, but in imports, it is second. So third part is Germany. Fourth is Japan. And India exports stands 18th and imports stands 10th. So this is the clear picture of the mercantile trade of Indian economy and global economy. And next, we shall come to the point of the Indian economy now. So according to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the global economy could shrink by 3% in 2020, around 3%. So let me understand the Indian international trade now in the second part. Indian mercantile exports slumped by 60% in May, lowest in 25 years. You should understand the concept where we are going to lead our Indian economy. Indian mercantile exports slumped by 60% in May, lowest in 25 years. The major reasons behind that is India's imports from China. This is one of the important measure because India and China trade relationship is very high. And domestic supply chains related to the elasticity of supply and job losses. These are the major important facts behind the existence of the present situation of the Indian economy, international trade. So let me come to the point of the foreign exchange reserves. So in the March, April, May, June, how the different things have been decreased and increased. In March, we have $902 billion, but it has been decreased in April and still decreased in May, but somewhat increased in June. These are the total categorized issues related to the foreign exchange reserves in the hands of the Indian economy. So now, what are the major exports falls? Why the exports fall was been taken place, and what are the major fields of the exports falls? Indian exports has fallen down. So what are the major goods and services which have been translated? One is the engineering exports. This is the major important point. That is minus 91.2%. The fall in exports. Second one is USA, major import. So it is also minus 70.5.8% has been increased. But China was drastically stabilized in its export falls. It has not been decreased. The China was in the positive side. It has been increased its exports to 19.1%. The global exports, I'm mentioning here, exports in the global extent between March and May 2020. The third important fact, fruits and vegetables, as I've been already mentioned, between March and May, the fruits and vegetables used to export more from India. But because of this pandemic, we cannot. So what is the total percentage? Minus 70.2% fall in the exports falls. And then the related to the oil mills. Oil mills are very much related to the minus 69.9%. And then meat and dairy, minus 45.5%, gems and jewelry, minus 41.1%, leather and leather products, minus 36.8%. These are the major facts of the Indian economy where the goods have been drastically taken into consideration. And now come to the next point of understanding of India's exports and imports. This way we can understand what are the mismatch between the exports and imports related to this. So gradual increasing of the imports, gradual decreasing of the exports. We can identify here. We can identify in the two colors of that. In the March, April, May, and June, there is an increase in imports from 59 to 64%, but there is any decrease in exports from 38% to minus 15% in the same period between the March, April, May, and June. And then we shall understand the India's trade during the lockdown. What are the important major things that have been adopted and affected? Exports, food processing, organic farming, iron, aluminium, copper, agrochemicals, electronics, industrial machinery, furniture, leather and shoes, auto parts, textile, marks, sanitizers, and ventilators. You can underline that last important parts there. Textiles, masks, sanitizers, and ventilators. They have been increased. India's trade during the lockdown. But imports, for 27%, mineral fuels, oil and waxes and bituminous substances, perils, 14%, 10%, 8%, 4%. These are the ways in which the increase and decreasing of the India's foreign trade policies. And then what are the major reasons for the trade fall? We can identify here what are the major reasons apart from other goods and services. We identify now what are the major goods which have been contributed for the exports and imports. Now we can identify what are the reasons for the trade fall. The first important reason is large scale closure of the restaurants. We can identify this. So how this trade fall is to be taken place. And second one is in India, the March-May period is peak season for the export of fruits and vegetables. Third one is less exports of seafood and vegetables. And fourth one is Italy. You can, though it is a very small thing, you can identify even small things are also going to be affected the international trade. In the last part, Italy, the largest buyer of India's coffee, the largest buyer of Indian coffee started buying of Brazil coffee. So this is also one of the important measure as to how that we can deal with the international trade things. So only little things I'm mentioning, not the big things of ideas. So what are the other reasons? The other reasons are related to this is on March 24th, India had prohibited the exports of hand sanitizers. India has prohibited the exports of hand sanitizers, soaps, washing and cleaning preparations, disinfectants, and medicaments. These are the very important steps the government of India took place. That's what the Indian exports fell down in March and June. Second part, on May 6th, India has banned the export of ventilators. You can imagine the case. Even we need the ventilators, and we are importing the more of the ventilators from foreign countries. Artificial respiratory apparatus, oxygen therapy apparatus, and any other breathing appliances. On May 6th, India has banned all these health instruments. And over 2.5 lakh tons of basmati rice. So this is very crazy to be understand how this international trade is going to be affected. You understand the last point there? Over 2.5 lakh tons of basmati rice valued at rupees 1,700 crore is held up in the Iranian ports since lockdown. It has not been imported till now. So these are all the major small things which are going to be affected in a bigger way. And then what are the Indian optimistic move towards the existence of the COVID-19, and how the optimistic we can assume that the fact that so online sales was increased. Online sales, what are the major goods that has sales has been increased is comparatively to the others? Furniture, first one, the major demand to the furniture. Second one is auto components. Third one is air conditioners. These are the three major issues there where the online sales were took place. And employment in May, employment was also increased. 21 million was increased in May, not in April or March. So that's very much related to the small traders, wage workers. And labor participation rate. This is very important to be noted. Labor participation rate, migrants, they came back, or the increasing of the laborers, even for that matter, we can say labor participation rate has been increased from 35% in March to 38% in May. This is one of the important positive move of the Indian economy. And then we can come to the last part of our discussion, that is the conclusion part. So in the conclusion part, what we can say? We can say that there is a possibility of everything in the Indian economy, but we will have to cope with all the important impediments. One is the major provisions the India has to do is inclusive growth and inclusive probability related to all these things. All people should be included in the growth rate. And second point is the financial literacy should be increased, because we are identifying the major drawbacks in the banking, insurance sector, education sector, and others. We can identify now the online classes and other things. So this should be taken place. And then the made for India, not related to the made in India. So it's related to made for India. We will have to produce the goods and services not to the rest of the world, but for the Indian economy or the Indian people. And last part will be the sustained development. Sustained development in the case, the continuous and constant development related to the issues of climate change or the environment or transportation or infrastructure facilities or agricultural facilities or any other things, the sustainable development is very much necessary in this regard. So I'm going to end this session through the discussion through which we can achieve the maximum extent of the Indian economy. These are the major effects or the impact or the implications on the Indian economy by the COVID-19. Thank you. Thank you very much for your patience. Over to the organizers.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, we have few questions that our participants have asked us. So let me read out a few of them. Because of time constraint, we're just going to read very few questions. So the first question is, Prime Minister of India announced the concept of local, vocal, global. How does it work in Indian economy?
So everything, so since time is very constrained, I'm also giving not elaborative answers in 1 or 2 sentences or 3 sentences, because the others were also going to be speak. So local, vocal, global, they're all always related to all the facts of, I had been already mentioned, related to the financial integrity. Financial integrity is very important. And in the last part also, I mentioned something about made for India, not made in India. We will have to produce the goods and services, or we will have to make our resources possible, not to the others, but for ourselves. So globalization, which was been existed during the time of 1991 and onwards, it cannot be happen. So globalization is somewhat failed in the Indian economy, as I feel at this present time. Apart from the globalization, we will have to adopt something about the localization. Then only we can bring up all other facts. Then
Okay, thank you, sir. Then the second question is, do you feel the future will be distance education? If so, what are the benefits and disadvantages of it?
no, I cannot feel that it's a future online. It cannot be, particularly in India. It will not be successful in the long term. The Indian mindset is different because Indian education is having 3,000, 4,000 years representation since from the Nalanda. So it is not possible to the Indian economic mindset. We want to sit in the class, we'll have to learn through the direct extent from the teacher. That is the possibility. It will not be successful. Not only related to that, even in population, electronic, mobiles, what is going to be happen in the mobile things? I used to say, when we are going to say something about students to go for the online, they used to say, give us the mobile and the currency and other electricity probabilities. This is the rural India. 80% of people still depending upon the rural sector. It's not possible. It's not possible. Education is not possible through online. Yeah, other things other things can take place, but not education. That I feel. Even we have failed at present. Only 20 to 30% people are attending the online classes, not more than that. That is the thing. Yes, then.
Thank you, sir. I think that gives a lot of hope to all the teachers who want to actually come to college and start taking classes.
Certainly, even I am also for it, not for online.
All right. So the third question is,
Yes.
as an economist, what are the new policies should be initiated by the central government to balance country's current GDP?
Yes, labor participation. Labor participation is very important. What I want to tell you related to this is, GDP, gross domestic product. It is only the value of the goods and services which has been produced in a year during a particular country like that. But in that, there is no participation of labor. There is no participation of labor value in that. So what Marx used to say, each and everything has to be created through the value. Value of labor is very important. This is first and foremost. You can study about this. The labor production or the labor participation is very much important in the Indian economy. Labor is much neglected sector in the India. Labor, particularly unorganized sector laborers, agriculture and industry, daily wages, they are much affected. It has not been counted in the GDP. That is the major important drawback. So India has to take care of the labor participation. So why you just imagine the case of Russia and even China, labor participation is very high in the economic determination events. That is the thing. Yes, next.
So the last question that we have is, economic package that is announced by state and central government to support the affected sections due to COVID-19. Like, according to you, which sources can compensate the loss to the central budget in terms of deficit?
It is only through the fiscal deficit. Particularly, the Indian economic mentality is completely different. Whatever you say, I used to directly come to the mentality of the people, because I am talking in the way of producers as well as the consumers. Here, the participation of the consumers should also be there. Not only the government. I has been always telling, it is not the government that can be participate much on everything. It is the participation of public should also be there. So on these grounds, we shall distribute the goods and services in a proper way. PPP, again. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. With all these questions, we are done for this particular session. So with those, we would like to thank you for all these words of wisdom. And it was really very informative and helpful for all of us. And it was understandable because all of us, as understanding the economy is as important as living in it. So it gave us an insight about everything. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, pa. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think, sir, I think you have given a detailed statistics of Government of India and Government of Karnataka. I think all the major things you have covered, sir. It was very nice, very informative, very detailed information, particularly for the economic students. I think, so you have spent a lot of time and energy in preparing the presentation. So
Yes.
we really appreciate your interest in this and taking time out of your schedule. On behalf of the management and my own behalf, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for providing me this opportunity, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Sorry to interrupt, Sarvanan. Sir, Shashikumar sir, it was
Yes.
so privilege and it was happy to listen to you, sir. It was so well informed. The information what you shared was really mind blowing, sir. And I'm just seeing the chat box. The chat box is full of appreciation. And the information was, I mean, it's really something which says that the effort what you have put in for this presentation. So thank you for all the efforts what you have taken, sir. From the management, I also thank who have accepting our invitation to be a part of this virtual learning, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Many are
Thank you,
requesting
Naveen.
for your
Thank
presentation,
you.
sir. Many
Huh?
are requesting for your presentation.
Yes, I will send it. I will send it.
Please send
It's
it.
my
It is
pleasure because I want to enlighten the people. They should come out
Yes,
from
sir.
the
Yes, sir.
this thing now.
Because it is a detailed information, a document of COVID-19 implications. I think government initiatives, each and every point you have covered with the minute details. So please share the document with us. So we will share it to the participants.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
Certainly,
very
sir.
much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So, Shashikumar sir, if you want, you can. If you have time, you can stay in the thing, sir. There will be one more speaker who's going to speak on the topic, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. If possible, I will be there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Okay, ma. Thank you.
Thank you again on behalf of
Thank you.
Jain College as well as myself, sir. So
Thank you.
further on,
Thank you very much. Yeah.
further on, I would be requesting Professor Parmesha C, Coordinator, Department of Management, to introduce the keynote speaker, Mr. Ankit Dugar. Over to you, Parmesha.
Very happy to introduce the keynote speaker, Mr. Ankit Dugar, Associate Director with CFO Advisory Services in a multinational professional service network and one of the big four accounting organizations known as KPMG. Prior to joining, he has worked with SR Bartleby Associates LLP, member firm of Ernst & Young. He is a qualified chartered accountant and Jain alumnus. He is specialized in the field of accounts and auditing. His professional experience covers the areas like finance controllership, gap convergence, business combination and consolidations, share-based payments, and IFRS training. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing this opportunity with me to be with the members and be with the students who are learning to grow with the economy and just understand a sudden outbreak what no one had expected, and it has affected each and every one of us. Just seeing that how is that the country and the economy would move out from this pandemic into a new normalcy. So firstly, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. Connecting with students is the most important thing, and one of the things I always like, because that is the reason I go into the DIP IFRS sessions for the CA students and the ACCA students, because it keeps me connected, and that is the source of learning that you all get. Thank you, BTV sir, Naveen sir, for giving me this opportunity to be with all the students and be with the JGI once again. So it's from the other side to this side.
Welcome, Ankit Dugar.
Hearty welcome. And definitely, I think you have taken pride in participating in our college webinar. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Sashi sir also given a good insight about what has happened and what is the impact that's happening globally, and also what is the impact that has foreseen on the Indian economy, because you would have seen that the population of India is so huge. And if I would compare it to a lot of other countries that it has been hit, India would have still managed to keep it to a lower count. And we heard that China and India are on the to see a positive GDP growth. So this is all possible based on the steps that everyone has been able to take, as well as how India sees to cope up with with the disruption that has happened. So I would just cover in the aspects from more of an industry specific, how it impacts the entities that are functioning in India, and what is the, while we saw a lot of negative impact that the COVID has created, there are also some entities that have emerged out of this entire COVID situation as well. So would cover in the aspects of both of them. So COVID, as you know, has affected every segment of the business, maybe the supply chain, maybe the financial markets, or the availability of labor force. So if you see the country as such, it is a chain of events that draw. And if a cut at any place in the chain that happens, it affects the entire organization or operational facility of that entity. So with the lockdown at multiple states that have happened, you had seen there was disruption in the supply chain, which led to no transfer of materials that are maybe manufactured. They were lying at the warehouses waiting to be distributed. But unfortunately, because of state lockdowns and a smaller area-wise lockdown that were introduced, these saw that it was not freely transportable to other states. So this led to a difference in demand and supply within the states, where some were left with abundant while the others were left with scarcity. So in this situation, it was a more challenging situation, because you see that I have the means and I have the products in a place, but it cannot be delivered to the other state where they require it. So the supply chain is one essential that is embedded in the system, which is not virtual, which is virtual, but it has a very, very significant role as much as the people and the money to run the organization. The labor force, the pandemic created such an immediate impact that the laborers did not know when the world would resume to normal. They were forced to make decisions to stay versus to travel back. A lot of them opted to travel back, taking the risk of life and what is in store for them. But now when we think that we need to get back to a new normal, what I would call it in the situation of Corona and COVID, now where the industries plan to resume the work, there is a scarcity of the laborers because these have already migrated to other places. So now the issue is twofold. One is the absence of laborers. Second is absence of skilled laborers. Some have been part of organizations serving for years. And now you see that, okay, now I need to upskill or reskill someone to get back to do that work. So it is not just the issue, if I would see that laborers are facing with no source of income, it is an equal issue with the entities. Now that they plan to resume to normal, there is no laborers or the required skill set to get them back to normal at an immediate foresee. So it would be a spread over a period of time, which would be a flattened curve, and then it will start to rise. As we were just informed and made aware that India has hit the lowest ever GDP in the previous year, and this was just pre-COVID issue. So if you see the Q3 of 2019, that was which was one of the lowest real GDP that India had posted, and that is when COVID-19 came into the picture, making things more worse from an economy activity. So it has brought the nation to standstill, both from a consumption and an investment. So it is not just one side of it, but it's the entire sandwich of activities that the organization would enter into is all brought to a standstill. While everyone is looking on an annual basis that there would be an X percentage growth in the GDP, where normally globally we project to grow at 2.5%, all the countries putting together, the expectation in the current year is this would shrink by 0.9% approximately. So rather than moving to a path of progress, this is where we are seeing that, okay, I think it would be more of a slower down and a negative slower down. The supply chain, like I spoke, which has been the major impacted piece, it is also on account of travel restrictions, not only in domestic, but also international. So, and putting all these things together, IMF is looking at the world economy and saying that we might be hit by a recession as big as depression of 1930s. So we are moving, if the things do not normalize and the entities in the country is not able to take in steps to revive the entire process, we would be closing down to a near depression of what we faced in 1930. And this is not just because of an Indian economy, you should understand, but it is how the recession is globally. Even before COVID, the global performance of the entities were nearing a recession. So COVID has just worsened the impact for everyone for now. So if you see, the worst hit areas would be entertainment and recreation. Two reasons. In COVID, where everyone is talking about social distancing and maintaining safety because the spread is contagious. So it is not possible in such a entity of such an entertainment thing. So what happens is, one is because of the COVID. Second is people do not have money to spend on these activities. With the limited amount of money that is available with everyone, the priorities of where to spend this have entirely changed. So the budgeting of these money on where the consumption or what is the consumption pattern that I need to spend on, it is seen that while the next worst hit section would be the aviation industry, because you would not want to travel as much, because if you see the news, it says that while the vaccine is in progress and there are human trials that are going on, but to have a certified vaccine, we may be close to 1.5 to 2 years away. While there may be domestic vaccines that might get developed, and maybe the government would want to have those tried on to see whether this qualifies. But a certified vaccine which was approved by WHO might take a long time. And that is where we are telling that we need to learn to live with the COVID rather than just put everything to shut down. And that is where from lockdown, it has come to an unlock, where it's saying, okay, there is no other way that you can live at the moment, but take the precautions. You cannot, a lockdown is not an answer to COVID. That was to get in the steps that were immediately required. And now that we think, okay, we have a certain control on identification of the COVID areas, paying more concentration to those areas, now it is a time where we need to start working on reviving all the entities back. Because you cannot keep funding a company or an economy through donations. It is through the work and the activities that get carried on is what will fund the economy to perform. Otherwise, just imagine the amount of deficit that it would add on. If in 3 months down the line, if I was unemployed 3 months because of the COVID, because maybe there are pay cuts or any reason, I see an immediate effect on me. Okay, if my salary isn't crediting, how do I pay a housing loan? How do I pay my credit card bills? How do I pay my children's education? So these are the immediate things that come to me. And I am more shattered than thinking of what is happening to the economy. But if I see at the economy, if you see at that business who is laying me off or who is giving me a pay cut, if you just try to see, there are some business needs, but the liquidity position of these businesses are at such standstill. And if it does not take these precautionary measures at that point of time by either deferring these amounts to be paid to employees or just cutting it down by a certain percentage, it would come to a close down. So eventually leading to like no jobs, right? So while everyone gets immediately carried away by what hits them, the economy is into a much worse position is what we need to see. So that is where, at least when my friends and everyone comes to me as to what do you say about employment and what is that is in store for us, I always say that if you haven't got bonuses, it's okay. If you haven't got increments, it's okay. If you have got a marginal pay cut or if your pays have been deferred, maybe we'll pay you the 25% in the month of December once we get back. You are in one of the best places to be in, because just consider about the companies, like you would have got Google News from all the companies like Swiggy and Ola, where you have seen that overnight they had employees all pushed out. And this is a kind of situation where you might not find employment immediately. So while we are immediately affected, please see as to how your business is also seeing seeing itself. And of course, no business would want to lay off people or do something for its good, because a business can survive only when the people in it survive. So no one runs an entity or an organization or an enterprise by itself. It is a group who put it. So we'll get into some details of the entity specific and sector specific, what are the issues that they are facing as well. So this was just an example, because this has become one of the most talked about topic in the among the entire force right now, because everyone is amidst the confusion. So now we had seen most of the countries, after having a lockdown of from 1 to 3 to 4 months, where they're now calling it, we had to resume back to the our operations. And what we see in forces, where we see the business have entire Q1 revenues wiped out in most of the cases. But what is happening is everyone is looking at a very stronger second half of 2020, because this is where most of the economy is all opened up, and everyone will be able to now start generating the sources of income, having a better spend capacity, leading to creating a new normalcy in the company, in the economy. This may not be like into an immediate effect, but over a period of time, you would see that we are on a path to a recovery, and recovery in certain sectors of economy will be faster than the other sectors. So while I mentioned that, am I audible? Because I see the video frozen of Venkatesh sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I just confirming that once. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first priority, like where I told you where the entities are now moving into, is providing or drawing and stabilizing their cash and liquidity. So where every entity had certain budgets and everything planned, everything now gets changed based on what is the requirement and what is an immediate cash requirement, and where is the one that I can defer it. So this is the foremost priority of any entity, and all the decisions that are taken around this cash and liquidity will what make an entity finally see the test of the COVID situation and bring it out much more stronger. So it is more of renegotiating terms with the vendors, with the customers, maybe seeing that doing a credit sale versus cash sales at a lower price. So all these are the different set of activities and decisions that an entity will start taking to ensure that it stabilizes cash and liquidity in the entity, because this is the foremost thing any entity for that matter would need. Because if you do not have a positive current ratio, then that means it's basically into a problem, because your current liabilities, then the amount that you need to pay is much more higher than the amount that you'll be able to collect on an immediate basis. So this is where it comes into ensuring that the liquidity is maintained. So some of the businesses, to give you an example of what is happening or how the organizations are restructuring themselves or developing into a new strategy to bring us survival in this unprecedented times. So if you see what the entities or the key business are doing is they're building a resilient enterprise. So what do we mean by resilient enterprise? They are just seeing that, are we financially resilient? That is, can we withstand the financial impact of liquidity? Will we come down to a situation that, okay, I might need to file a petition for liquidation because I don't have money? Or can I do something with my operating and financial policies to keep the business surviving and have a liquidity to meet the current requirements? They're also seeing whether my entity is operationally resilient. That is, does it have the ability to withstand the shocks that will continue to happen over a period of time due to the COVID situation? So while there has been already an impact on account of COVID, no one in the country is rolling out that everything has now become smooth. So there will be still shocks that will continue to come in. Maybe it may be because of additional cases. Maybe it will be because of the spending patterns on the first few months or the first few quarters may be different of the consumers. So is the entity operationally able to deliver its core business by putting in policies that it does not shut down operationally? Whether the entity is regulatory resilient, that is, while all this is impacting everyone, do you think I can still continue to meet in good faith all the regulations that I need to comply with? So if I would come into an entities where there are FDI investments and all, there are a lot of compliances that happen, and amidst the requirement of additional funds, there is also a requirement to be regulatory compliant with whatever funds that you have received, and the reporting for such is much more stronger. So whether it does not crumble down so much in the effort or under the pressure of core business that it is not able to manage its regulatory compliance. Whether I'll be able to build a commercial resilience, that is, whether I'll be able to respond to the changing market and the changed consumer requirements. So you would have seen that the customer requirements, what were there pre-COVID, has entirely taken a shift pattern, and the customer requirements now are much different than what it was before. So can an entity structure its own policies? Can it structure its own business finance in such a way that will be able to deliver what the customer needs rather than doing the core business as it was always doing? So whether the company will be able to understand and handle that pressure. So if you see, these are the pillars around which, and we are seeing that if the entities can take a caution and prepare itself on building resilience around the finance, the operation, regulatory, and the commercial aspects, there may be a slowdown at a temporary moment, but it will be much more brighter in the future. So just to take an example of an operational resilient, maybe we take an example and just go into a detail on how an entity may look into a operational resilience model. So if I see an operational resilience model, that means basically all the resources, whether it is manpower, raw materials, technology, supply chain, and everything of these facilities that need to be knit into each other to ensure that the output is delivered. Let's take an example of workforce management in that. This is one of the most talked about topic at the moment, where we are seeing retain versus fire kind of thing. So a workforce management is what has become a most important aspect for all the organizations. Say maybe it be a service sector, maybe it be a consultancy sector, maybe it be a industrial and manufacturing sector. But if you see, the workforce management is one of the most important pieces that needs to be there. So what is the scenario right now? So business needs to ensure that the business requirements are balanced along with the employee needs. So you cannot either outweigh telling that business requirements are much stronger and maybe I would have to compromise on the employee needs, but I cannot also key or heed into all the requirements of employees and tell that, okay, I need to keep my employees happy. I'll see what happens to the business. So it is a very minute and a distinct way in how the entities would then start to bridge a balance between the business requirements and its employee needs. So what would be the challenges that an entity might face? And it would be like keeping the workplace and the workforce safe. Like in the COVID, most of them are thinking, okay, is it possible that I do not come to office? So it is more that ensuring the safety of the workers who are working in the workplace. And most importantly, it is very easy to just get disconnected once you disengage or go for a work from home scenario. So very important, how do I stay connected with these employees and how I keep them motivated? Because unless this happens, the output or the efficiency of the employees would slowly see a downward graph. So some of the entities, how they have responded to this in the immediate or a short-term basis is developing a work from home culture. At least for most of the sectors, I do not see that anyone would have thought that I would be working, most of my employment workforce would be working from home and still be delivering. So COVID, or we say like Naveen sir quoted it, necessity is mother of inventions. And you have seen that we have been able to come and deliver and perform at a work from home culture. Otherwise, you would see that whatever is the output that is being generated now, even that would have been a standstill. So a work from home culture is what an immediate short-term requirements that the entities are looking in from. They're also looking in from, if I would see an entity, it would have multiple segments. Some segments, the demand would have come in down, while the other segments would have been steady or in certain cases even risen. So now there has been an imbalance that has been created in the entities as is. So now what entities or organizations are trying to do smarter is from an ambiguity or from a place where there are a high workload on a few and a very minimal work with the others, they are trying to even out by distributing this work across the workforce. So these are how it is ensuring that everyone is motivated and has work to do. While the long term, what it is looking at is I need to reskill or upskill the resources to ensure that they will be able to survive and give me the deliverables with all the new outcomes that have come out of Corona in the COVID situation. So COVID has taught us or brought in a new methods in which now the deliveries are happening, whether it is deliveries of tertiary sector or industrial sector. So that will become the new normal. So can the employees get reskilled and upskilled to continue to deliver that even when the situations get back to normal? The organizations are also doing more from a role-based to a skill-based design. So it is no more that I go in only by a design which is based on the roles of what the employees are forming, but it is now based on the skill. So this is what will help the enterprise as well as such in ensuring that, okay, I have met their immediate short-term requirements of what was there, but now I've understood that if a situation like this ever comes up, I would be able to tackle it and stay aloof because I've reskilled, I've upskilled, and now I focus on skill rather than role-based work. So that is how the organizations are looking into and reacting to the COVID situation at the moment. What has emerged out most outstanding in the entire piece of, or in this gloomy times, is the tech. Like a perfect example that was laid down at the beginning was Zoom. For me, a maximum I would have used was a Skype call if I needed to do a business meeting. If I needed to do a personal call, maybe I was doing a WhatsApp call. WhatsApp call was initially limited to say a 1 member, it came to a 4 member, and now it allows more number of members. But no one would have ever thought connecting to a range of 100, 500 odd people and delivering your thoughts to them over Zoom. So you see that it's not been gloomy for all the entities, all the sectors of the sectors that operate, but it has been seen that some sectors have made use of the gloomy times, rethought what should be my product, what should be my delivery at the moment, and they have come with flying colors. So another example of this is, say, Zomato. Zomato was only used for ordering food. It was first set up where it used to only give address and details of restaurants. It changed the business model to, say, a delivery food or to a dine-in offers. And now you see that the COVID has taught it, okay, you need to even deliver essentials. So enterprises, to be viable and to be able to perform and to exist, have now changed their roles and just not thinking, okay, I was a food delivery app, I need to be that. I was a restaurant app, I need to be that. So everyone is changing based on what is the requirement that the consumers want. You would have seen Swiggy, right? Swiggy started doing the same thing. When I see Dunzo, you were just using it for delivery of your parcels from here to there. They brought in this entire concept of delivery of food chain as well. So you have seen these are some kind of startups that have made a great decision using the business finance, and they have been able to come out with some operational model that will help them to survive even in the difficult time. So basically that comes to an answer that, like we told, that I need to concentrate on my core business, but if my core business also needs to accommodate the consumer pressure, the customer requirements, that is what I need to do as well. I would not be able to survive in an isolation kind of a model. So with entire tech going up, parallelly what went better was the cyber security. So in this entire model, what you also need to have is that cyber controls, because you cannot become a victim to hacking and then tell that, okay, my business just did not work. So both go in parallelly, that an information technology and a cyber security have both got that upliftment in this COVID situation. They're always a booming piece in the economy. But what has happened in this period is they have stood outside the entire other sectors that are there. So if I would say, how many of you would have maybe used anything apart from Flipkart, Amazon on the e-commerce page, or your neighbor Kirana shop to buy groceries? Now you would have that, okay, I have used multiple others, including Domino's. This is because it is also not just the industry is changing, but also customer wants to feel safe that, okay, if I think this is a better one for me, I can also opt for this. So there is a switch in mindset, where some have gone back to a conventional thinking that I need to get back to a Kirana store because it is the safest way, while others, if you think there was no e-commerce, just cannot imagine what would have happened about Maharashtra and Delhi. So it is a balance that is there. Every sector has an important role to play, and everyone is just converting the difficult times and seeing what is the potential business I can make and emerge out of this. Let me take you to some sector specific details. And if I were to say an auto and auto component industry, so what we have seen is there was already a weak demand of four-wheelers that was happening in the economy, and now with the COVID, the production facility was fully shut down. This basically brought the business to a standstill. What added to the grievance of these was, if I would just see my auto and auto components sector, around 25% of India's automotive part was imported from China. So now, in this entire process, the imports of the raw materials were also brought to a standstill. So in the absence of the critical essentials that I need to run my organization, maybe the raw materials, maybe the people, this entity has seen one of the largest impact, and it is expected to revive much more slower than the others because the customers are also postponing their decisions around the purchase of these. So I can two-wheeler, four-wheeler, at least the sales, you would see that they are muted to a certain extent, apart from maybe what I use it for, maybe a logistics, the logistics wing. So there would be a short-term halt in the requirements of a two-wheeler and four-wheeler. So you would see these entities facing some more difficult time in the near future before they resume back to the normal. if I go to a real estate building and construction, in an Indian economy which is developing and significantly growing day on day rather than even year on year, what happens is real estate is one of the largest employment generation in India. Whether it is unskilled, semi-skilled, or skilled, it provides work to a large section of the Indian economy. In the current scenario, the sourcing of materials and laborers has come to a standstill. This is not just because of laborers not being available, but if you see, there is a weakened demand for residential segment. So in the limited funds that all of the domestic people have, they are not at all looking or targeting at getting into the real estate at the moment. So if you see, it will be a much more prolongated short term and a relatively longer term when these would get back to normal. But it is more from an warehousing businesses and the other constructions which are related to storage will flourish first and faster than the residential ones. When I see into a customer, retail and internet business, essential commodities have been one which have been running throughout the lockdown, at least in the major part of it. So what has this brought in for the e-commerce and the retail, that you're seeing the growth in number of players. Like I told, that apart from the normal kirana shop which are back to 100% working efficiency, we are seeing a lot of e-commerce players like Dunzo, we are seeing Zomato, Swiggy, Domino's all come into this segment as well. So there have been a lot more growth for these players, and to an extent there have been improved margins, because you have seen that most of the prices were on the upward side, maybe because of the inflation or even because of the scarcity of supply, and you would see an improved margins in these entities. Improved distribution models have helped these entities. So the tie-up of these entities with the others to help develop that distribution chain on an immediate basis has just ensured that, okay, these guys would just be able to deliver through other modes, and the business would not come into a standstill. So I'm not sure if members have used, say, for example, a Bharat Pay app, or even say a Dunzo app. Now it lets you, if you're a Kirana store, it lets you register yourself as a seller, and it lets you display your products and price from which you're able to buy the goods. So it is not just a flourish to an e-commerce, but it is a flourish to a normal Kirana store as well, which brings a better margin and a better volume to all of them. But while essentials has been good, the non-essentials to an extent did have a risk, because a large inventory was stuck where you could not deliver it, because either it was in other state or it was in a state where you did not have a permission. Seeing a risk of inventory. So with the inventory, the major risk was the risk of product shelf life. So not all products are like refrigerators, air conditioners that you can sell them after 1 year as well, right? A lot of them come with an expiry date which need a specific way in which they need to be stored. So all this was increasing the inventory cost and increasing a lot of impairment of inventory that was happening. So for customer and retail and internet business, it has been two parallel lines, where essentials has done relatively better and non-essentials until the Q1 has been on a relatively back foot. Coming to the education sector. So education sector also, if you see, there has been a disruption in how, because now there are not on an immediate basis, you do not see people or even the education management wanting to run the colleges, because they are at safety first and then we take into the other steps. So while everyone plans to do a normal resumption of services, but what has helped these institutions and this sector going is that this sector was able to gear up with implementation of e-learning, developing digital content and delivery capabilities within their employees. So this is a way that they have been connected with all their consumers who become the students, and ensuring that, okay, the services that need to be received by a student, because you would not want to tell that, okay, let's wipe out this one calendar year from everyone's career, and then tell that, okay, it is a loss for everyone of 1 year and we'll see it from the beginning for the next year. It is an equal hardship for all these, but everyone has come out with the different ways through which they're trying to ensure that education can be imparted till everyone is back to the new normal. Healthcare is one which has been, again, I would say, a mixed opinion, because if you see, there was a temporary increase in prices of surgicals and sanitizer and other things because there's a huge spike in demand, but the supply was very limited. But what is the most important focus that the healthcare industry is looking currently is its focus on the strength of paramedical staff. So how to provide safety to them, how to train more people to get into the shoes of the existing people, because you will need a continuous flow, because it is not like an industry. We need to understand that it's not like a robot based or an repetitive process that will keep happening on its own. It requires a human intervention. So until there is no focus on development of strength and the safety of paramedical staff, this sector would just come to a standstill and bring the country to a standstill currently. So these are a few sectors where you would see that some have seen a positive way out of this. Some found out alternate intermediate ways where we can work on until everything normalizes, while others who unfortunately are into a soup where they will take some more time to come out of it. And it is not that entities or the economy is not providing enough stress for the growth, but the hit has been such significant and immediate impact that no one was actually prepared for such kind of a situation. So if you see some entrepreneurs, they have just mentioned that maybe for some of the startups, it may be a year of survival rather even thinking about a year to flourish. So if you are able to survive this year, it is maybe you have done the best part of what you could have done in the COVID situation, because it is a startup you just see, it is the one where you would require a large funding that needs to come in, and also because it's into a very base level idea, which would then bloom into something bigger. So for them, they're seeing that, okay, if I'm able to survive, I have done enough and more than enough for the current year. So this is the way various organizations are seeing, how the organizations are trying to build resilience around prioritizing the scarce resources to ensure that their services go uninterrupted, and just awaiting maybe a second half of 2020 to being much brighter and much better compared to a Q1, while everyone is prepared that it may not bring back the old normalcy, but it will be on the path of progress. So thank you, everyone. This is, I would put in a forum open for questions, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. So we have few questions from our participants. So let me read out a few hand-picked questions because of the time schedule that we have to maintain. So the first question is, being a CA, what do you think about the future, that is in the next 2 years, the financial position of SMEs?
Okay, good question. So this question is, again, I would take it into twofold. One is, if I would see just as an SME, what government is doing is it understands that while large organizations may be still self-sufficient or may have alternate ways where they might be able to survive, what SMEs are able to, it is providing more of a relief to SMEs, maybe through loans or maybe through better attractive packages that it is designing for them. So government understand that SMEs are the one which would otherwise collapse because they would need more hand holding than the stabilized businesses. And if you see what is the role of a chartered accountant in this entire process is everyone understands that the services of a chartered accountant are not the ones that can be maybe compared to other industries, maybe made a robotized or maybe made into say a model where it runs on its own. So it requires a human intervention. And with growth in the complexities, if I would just take the current situation, if you have seen what role that or the additional responsibility that has come upon on chartered accountants, maybe the audit wing, is the institute has come up with a lot more requirements that it wants the members to do. Maybe it is regarding the going concern of these entities, whether it thinks are there any other major indicators that it needs to appraise its users and investors. So if I would see the SMEs and the chartered accountants, the role of chartered accountants in getting back these SMEs through consultancy services and having helped them in developing those processes which help them in taking the critical decisions and helping them design and spend these scarce resources would be really important one.
Sir, so the next question that we have is, a person has asked, in the current situation, a lot of companies are removing their senior employees. If that is a situation for senior employees, what will be the future for fresh graduates in India?
Yeah, so like I was most expected, because everyone is more panicked about the employment situation at the moment. But if you see, there are two ways one could look at this. Why a company targets maybe say a higher designation member. So if I would see how the salary is drawn, maybe a salary of a CEO, CTO would be multiple folds of what a fresh joinee or maybe a relatively 2-3 years experienced member in the company would have. So a pay cut in that salary would essentially mean it's not funding one, it may be funding hundreds of other employees and the employee strength in that company. And if I would say an example of Big Fours, what has happened is, while you would have all heard about the pay cuts, but it was more of a voluntary pay cuts that the partners and top management have taken, because they understand that they are not separate from the organization. You need to flourish together, and in difficult times, it is a compromise that even you would have to make. And so it is more of a temporary nature, but you would not have generally heard at least chartered accountants being fired. So this is one of a positive boost. If you would take it as, you wouldn't have seen any Big Four tell that, okay, this is a COVID situation and I need to remove some chartered accountants because I don't think I have work for them. You would have seen that maybe the monetary might have been a bit paused or deferred in a few situations, but we at least do not see that there would be a job cut or a situation that you might be running out of jobs, whether it is at a fresh designation or whether it is at a higher designation.
So the next question that we have is, will you please throw some light on investment strategy during this pandemic?
Okay, so this is, so if I would say an entity, if it was doing and making all the investments maybe in expanding its business or on its core business activities, like I mentioned earlier. So now what happens is, you would have seen that there is no entities that is either, most of the entities are either deferred the plans of IPO or they are deferred their plans of getting new investment, because this is not the market scenario where I would be able to buy in the okay from the shareholders. So it would not be an easy okay to convince someone and get fresh investment. So what has happened is, from the normal budgets that the company would have initially prepared, maybe I need to put so much in capex to increase or to launch a new product line or to strengthen my supply chain. Now, a piece of that investment, if they think that, okay, that might be a long-term benefit that I might get, is now moved into what is the immediate requirement. So it may be that, okay, there is a change in my customer preference. And if I had 3 product lines and product line A is most preferable to them, I might be removing that investment from the other product lines and putting it to the product line, which is an immediate requirement. So the investment strategy from a short term, it is concentrating on the buyer pattern and the customer pressure. That is where they are looking from. But from a long term, I guess at least the investment from shareholders, while we would have seen a few deals still go through, but the overall is still a bit gloomy, and end of 2020 should be much more brighter for them to have fresh investment and going for a bigger deals.
So we have 2 more questions. So one question is, what precautions a business organization should take in the coming year to help in its liquidity position?
Okay, I give you a perfect example of say what the trading entities, or even for matter consulting entities, have been doing. Or if I would even say, for example, some of these entities like Zoomcar. So some of the entities now, they know that they need their staff as well. So the major cost for any of the entity, if it is a manufacturing entity, it will be for the raw materials. If it is for a consulting or other tech companies, it will be on their manpower. So this is what is a massive cash flow that an entity undertakes in the entire year. So when it comes to manpower, how entities have planned to fight this entire COVID is staggering certain payments by not making payouts at an immediate basis, while it would have paid out maybe say the normal salaries to all the employees. But if there were any benefits that the employees were supposed to get, maybe it was in terms of say variable pay, maybe it was in promotions or increments, all these have been either deferred and being paid out. Say they have had management reaching out to members telling that we'll pay 6 months down the line, we'll pay over the next 4 months and 25% each. So because they know that my immediate thing is I need to cater my budget against raw material and people parallelly. So if I would exhaust it at one place, it might be difficult, because as much as I would say for an entity to spend that money, it is also difficult for that entity in the COVID times to recover such money from its suppliers, because those entities are also facing an equal outburst. So it is more of a chain that is happening, because I do not have payments is where I am falling short of money to make payments to the ones whom I need to pay. And it will take some time where once the payments start going to the customers is where they start spending that money. And that is when the entire chain of the liquidity resumes to normal. So at the current times, the organizations are more looking at deferring certain payments, but not canceling it out to them, and also ensuring that they're maintaining a balance so that the operational activities and the core business are both able to run parallelly.
Sir, so we have a last question. Now, this is a repeated question that's been asked by many women in the group. Okay, so their question is, what will be the impact of gold prices in this current situation?
So if you would just see how the prices of gold has been fluctuating over a period, it is again, see, if I would say, what is the immediate customer pattern that I see? I do not see as much of a demand for gold because of reduced patterns of spending that money, as well as the occasions on which I would spend have been brought down or cut by the government itself. So if I would see any functions that I would generally do, so if I would see any social gathering for events like an marriage or any other ceremonies that are happening has been brought to a standstill by the government, where it has restricted either to the number of people that you can do it, or no in certain areas where you might not be able to do. So it is more of a demand drift that has been created right now. But this is again, like I told, it would stay in for some time while the customer spend normalizes, and over a point of time you would not see that it is going off way beyond where it has to be. So it would normalize to back to the places it is expected to be.
Oh, thank you, sir. With that, we are done with the question answer session. So I'd like to thank you for the deep insight you gave us on the topic. It was an eye-opener to understand things in different perspectives as well. So we would like to thank you on behalf of Jain College and all the faculty members and myself.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure as well being part of this.
Thank you, sir. So moving on. Sir, Naveen sir, would you like to tell something?
Interrupt. Sir, BTV sir. BTV sir.
Very much. It was very, very professional talk, which you have given a lot of insights, and you have handled the questions very well. So I'm really happy and proud to see all our students doing very well in the corporate sector. So excellent job done on our invitation. Thank you. May God bless you.
Thank you.
Ankit, I have one question to post. See, we had prior to COVID-19 lockdown, we had this concept called as hiring and firing.
Yeah.
So hire for a more salary and fire them with more work. But COVID-19, it has reached a situation where you have already hired, but there is no work. Now the fire is to remove. So as a chartered accountant, what do you feel? Is it this, giving them less salary or percentage cut is more better opt? And most of the companies, they are removing the employees. So what do you feel that in the coming years, especially in IT industries, especially people, the companies which are listed in stock exchange, what do you feel? And stock market, literally, they are into a panic whether the prices of shares are increasing. So as a chartered accountant, what do you feel that the situation is?
So yeah, that's the perfect question at how the economy is placed at the moment. So perfectly told, where if I was a chartered accountant, a big four, maybe I was doing a lot more of overload of work, as you mentioned, and it is generally so with most of the industries where you are paid big CTCs and expected to a lot of output, because an entity would of course pay you the money when it gets its output from you as well. So, but in the current time, you would have seen a lot of industries are doing these salary cuts, and also most of them firing. If I would take in, most of these e-commerce and also the manufacturing entities, because these are not able to meet their operational budgets at the moment. Because if I would see any company, maybe which is purely based on works based on a funding model, because it's right now into the footsteps of blooming and getting it more of a setup, and maybe the revenues and all would come into a futuristic. So right now it is more of a valuation that the company is working on, and later it would step into an operational model and getting into a self-sufficient cash flow. So for these entities, while I would see from my side that there are a number of people are being removed, but on the flip side, if I would see that these entities would have not removed those employees for 3 months and maybe paid the salaries to them, that entity itself would have discontinued, leading to a close down of or firing of all the employees that were there. So it is a very strategic decision some of these entities are taking, where you would have seen a lot of CEOs and maybe a partners of big fours who are taking these pay cuts of 25-30% in the salary, because they know that what they have got is from these organizations, and they also in this difficult times need to give back to these organizations. So if you were to ask me my personal choice between firing versus a low pay, I would more prefer, like, if an employee is left to a low pay or a percentage of pay, and then told if we maybe resume back maybe in 9 months, 6 months, we would pay you the differential salary to this percentage, which would be more of a motivator to the employees and the workforce as well. Because if an employee is fired at the current moment, it is a difficult situation where he might be able to find a job on an immediate basis. It might be a couple of months where he might get again placed into something, because that is the time where we're looking at everyone getting back to normal. So it is a flip to the same coin, where I would prefer that it gets staggered. And I guess most of the entities and organizations are moving towards the same thing. And you would have seen at least Big Fours openly announcing that they are deferring the payments because they don't want to leave their workforces away. And coming to the technology and IT industry, so a large piece of India is into these IT companies. So most of them are again derive their revenues all based out of the US companies whom they work with and partner with. But unfortunately, US has been having a turbulent time right now with entities not being working at a normal situation. So what this does is, most of these entities are in the IT. If you see, like say for example of say a Mindtree, a Cisco, all these are backed by US companies, and these generally work on the back end developing the softwares or working on the work received from the US companies, and work mostly on a cost plus model. So what happens now is, because there has been a decrease in the demand at the front end, there has been automatic cut down that has been passed to the Indian companies. So in this situation now, if the US is not able to generate the orders that it was able to, what it trickles down is to, okay, I have no other option than to cut the operational budget of the Indian companies from where I was getting this work done for this customer. And that is the current scenario that has been happening in the country. So some of these companies have also thought that, can I balance this out by giving them ESOPs instead of salary, where it is not an immediate cash burn for me, but if the employee trusts the company and values the company, maybe he thinks that it will give a value to him in the future. So this is how they have been designing it, but it is a very dicey and a tricky situation, which will take some more time before we can tell that everything is back to normal. And where we have seen that there have been a lot of firing, some of it is related to COVID. But while we also had to see that pre-COVID also was a more of a recession kind of situation that was going on, and COVID just worsened it, where the entities did not have much other option than to cut the manpower budget, because that is one of the significant spends.
So thank you, excellent, Ankit. Thank you so much for being the speaker for our national level conference. Thank you so much, Ankit. God bless you.
Sorry, sir.
Over to Shruti, madam.
Yes. Good afternoon, all. The current COVID-19 outbreaks has clearly put a pause on our lives, but there's nothing that stops a throughout life a smart working mind. The outrageous pandemic would have suspended all our daily work, but it could definitely not stop the evolving speed of researching and sharing our knowledge we all have planted within. Similarly, this conference worked on the same thoughts. We often take most of the things for granted. The most deserve our gratitude. I feel the privilege to have got the opportunity to extend my deep sense of gratitude to each of everyone present. Firstly, I would like to thank our chairman, Dr. Chainraj Roychand, who has always been an inspiration and being our source of enthusiasm. I thank him in absentia. My deep sense of gratitude to our director, B.T. Venkatesh sir, our guest of honor for our conference, who is always motivating us in pursuing good initiatives and bringing good thoughts to our organization. Thank you, sir, for giving your valuable time. I would not forget my heartfelt thanks to our beloved principal, Dr. Naveen Kumar CM, who is always constant and persistent efforts in bringing our idea into a reality. Thank you, sir, for this opportunity. I would now like to thank Dr. Shashi Kumar, the keynote speaker for our today's conference, for his immense efforts for enlightening us about the various types of assistance by Indian government and international monetary agencies to fight this pandemic situation. Thank you very much, sir, for being our resource person. I must mention my deep sense of appreciation for Mr. Ankit Dugar, our second keynote person for our today's conference, and sharing his knowledge on implications of COVID-19 on accounting, taxation, and related issues. Thank you, sir. The program would have lost its charm without participants. Participants, thank you for your valuable contribution for being in our conference. Thank you so much. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all our HODs of various departments, PG department, Commerce and Management, and Language department, and also my colleagues. Thank you so much for all being in our conference. Thank you all.
Just to add, I should definitely place on record the efforts taken by the entire department heads and the colleagues, and especially a special thanks to be given to Dr. Sarvanan, Shruti, Anita Kurian, Anita Madam, Pushpa Madam, Manjula, Paramesh, and others who have put in hard work to make this a reality. So thank you so much. All the very best.
Thank you for the entire team
Yes,
for organizing such an event. It was very nice. So thoughts were shared. So I thank everyone who were the part of this webinar. Thank you very much. So thank you, Naveen sir.
Sir, I should thank you on these days. I mean, I know that it is difficult for you to be such a long period, but still you were there. So thank you so much, sir, for all the blessing that you keep on doing to us. So please bless us, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Interesting, very good, very nice. Keep it up.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Shruti madam.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. You just wind up and you just tell the lunch break, and then we'll come back. Just you announce it.
Yes, sir. Yes. Okay, it's for our participants who have sent their papers to us. So we're going to have a lunch break till 1:30, and from 1:30 we're going to start with the paper presentation from 1:30 to 3 o'clock. That is track 1, and 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock it will be track 2. Validatory program. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, madam.
So thank you, sir. Thank you, BTV sir and Naveen sir, for your valuable words and the encouragement throughout. And thank you, Shruti ma'am, for the vote of thanks. And